Hey everyone, I'm Wa.
And I'm Chris, and welcome to Docu Sweeties.
We're two longtime friends who discuss the riveting and trashy world of reality TV and docuseries.
Yes, but through our own lens, which is firmly in the millennial generation that enjoys a certain throwback retrospective about things we thought were great, but ends up being horrible from our youth. And at the
Yeah.
day, hopefully mildly sweet because we're cool people.
Yeah.
What are we
So
talking
today
about?
we're talking Jerry Springer, Fights, Camera, Action, Part 1. This is a docuseries that is on Netflix currently, so go on ahead and check it out. So I was a fan of the Jerry Springer show. I thought it was salacious and outrageous, and I also thought it was fake. So it's interesting to watch this show, and I hope you guys will check it out, especially for those who grew up with Jerry Springer. And it's interesting because I feel like this documentary should have talked about the other talk shows of the time period that were doing similar content as opposed to the one talk show that wasn't. So anyways, jumping right into this, we have a TV countdown from 10 to 1 to let us know we're doing TV.
Live TV.
Yeah. And so we have a voice over come on. It says our show was created on the studio floor in the moment. And they give us a most salacious headline with the first person being a man who married his horse. And I will say this, even though I know I've said it before, Oprah Winfrey had a show when her show first aired, when she was a little thicker. She had the type of talk show that had two segments. The first half an hour was one thing, and the second half an hour was another. The first half an hour was maybe she was trying to be serious. I don't know, girl. But there was one episode where a woman married her turtle and another person married a fence. So this was what some talk shows were like in the 90s.
Do you remember Richard Bay?
No.
Okay. Richard Bay was to me the trashiest of them all. There's Ricky Lake, there's Sarah Jessica Raphael, there's Dr. Lauder. Obviously,
I'm sorry,
Dr. Phil comes later.
who? Sarah?
No,
Sarah
what's her name?
Jessica?
Sarah Jessica Parker? No, it's
okay.
Sally Jesse Raphael. That's what it is. No, you remember? Yes, you remember Sally Jesse Raphael with the
Donahue.
The pink, yes, the pink ballet skirt in New York and the red glasses. You're like, Chris,
Yeah.
you have absolutely just completely put two people in one. I will say, Richard Bay was one of those ones that was outwarded. They had crazy sound effects on Richard Bay. Where
I don't remember him. Geraldo. I don't remember.
Yeah, Geraldo. But yeah, you're right. Oprah has gone through a metamorphosis, and the Oprah that we know now is quite different from the Oprah back then. And, the truth of the matter is every artist does go through a journey. And I don't, certainly, if you can show me things that I've done in sketch comedy theaters that would absolutely just make me blush and I would just hate it. I'd be cringe city about it,
I have a few I could tell you.
Stop it. But anyway, so this is about Jerry Springer and the thing that also about the horse thing is they like to do a little Matt Sharp, if you will, where they want to be like, this man is in love with his wife and he's been in love for a long time and his daughter's here to talk about how his commitment to his wife. Can you bring out his wife? And of course it's a horse.
Wait, the
horse,
craziest
of course,
thing,
of course.
Here's what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to tell you, because they're this is Robert. I don't know his name. I make up. This is Robert. Robert has been married to his wife for 10 years. And, today we wanted to, Robert has let go of his ex-wife and his children, all for the sake of his love for his wife. And we have his wife here today. And I literally, we pan to him and he is a man who is wearing blind person glasses. He's wearing or cataracts glasses. So he's wearing
bluegrass kind of man glasses.
He looks like he has bluegrass.
He looks like a man that would play a fiddle in a bluegrass band.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, bluegrass glasses. No, to me those glasses from my childhood reminiscent of someone who cannot see. Someone who is visually impaired. He also has a stick with him that looks like it may be his guiding stick, but it's actually made out of wood. It looks like he just took it from a branch of a tree. So we can tell we're seeing a hillbilly of some sort. And then they also let us know that the people who were on the Jerry Springer show were from a Bermuda Triangle of
my God,
Ohio to Missouri down to like Macon County, Texas. I mean, Georgia. And there was a little bit of like Appalachia in there. So I'm thinking that this man is about to be racist and that he's been married to his wife for 10 years. I fully was like, okay, they're going to bring a black woman out. And it's like, who's going to tell him his wife is actually black and he hates black people? They bring out a fucking horse. And I was like, oh, I didn't see that episode.
Nope. And then we have like an omnious man, omnious, whatever, you know what that word is, with a beard and glasses, pause and say, it was the greatest love story ever told. In regards to obviously this man and this horse. And we get lots of montages and clips from other episodes. And the idea that it was a circus, it was a Roman gladiator style sport event where it was vulgar, it was vile, it was great television, which, by the way, very much feels like, and they will put this at the end of like this moment of chaos and how it spawns what feels like the style of television that you and I still talk about, which is heated, explosive, real moments on TV that teeter on violence.
Matt Sharp is the evolution of Jerry Springer.
Yep.
And so there is something about that kind of television. It's like, you know, it made way for like Bad Girls Club. It made way for so much like kind of television that we consume now without a thought in our head. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, like you had a lineup of Judge Judy, who was so rude to everyone. My grandmother loved Judge Judy. And when she told me she loved Judge Judy because of like the way she did it or the way she talked to people, I was like, in my mind, I was like, Granny, that's rude as fuck. Like fucking somebody needs to pop Judge Judy in the face for the way she speaks to people. Now, you know, no shade to Judge Judy.
Like Gatto does to you?
You're still alive, yeah. Gatto attacks me all the time.
Pop her in the face, like.
But yeah, you bitch, don't talk to me like that. I don't care if I'm in your courtroom or not. You will treat me with respect. I am a human. Okay. So, yeah, they, you know, just talking about like how it kind of the inception of Jerry Springer and how he was this new guy to Chicago. And for some reason he was introduced to the press, and maybe this was a practice that was done when a new TV show hit the airwaves, but he was introduced to the press. That he was coming and he was going to do a talk show. And so his whole thing was that he wanted them to say, he wanted the audience to say that they had learned something about life that they didn't know before. And that Jerry was like a real journalist or like a news person who wanted to get like the story out. And like he originally wanted to be into politics, and he was the former mayor of like Cincinnati and a news commentator. Like, so it's like he came in with so much accreditation and so much like professional and educational like power. So I think when people realized that like what the show had kind of evolved into, they were, you know, kind of concerned. And I knew that about Jerry. I always felt like he was a professional at the end of the day. He was never rude to any of his like people. He always looked like he asked like probing questions to like, you know, get people to think about themselves. And let me tell you right now, they didn't talk about this, but one of the things that I do remember from the Jerry Springer show is the ending little monologue that he would give. And it was always like a little sweet thing. Like, and he would be like, be good to yourselves and be good to others, you know? And I'm like,
take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
And each other.
Yeah.
And he would always do that. Take care of yourselves. Pause. And each other. It was like, I mean, it was melodic. I mean, technically, yeah. I mean, you know, there's a lot of shows that did that. I feel like Bob Barker did that. He'd be like, spay and neuter your pets, you know, like people have their like taglines, and you know, that makes sense. But yeah, we start to, so we obviously know the omnious man with glasses. We know Jerry. And we're going to start to, go ahead.
Bring your phone up here or something. Every time you look down at it, I lose you.
Oh, my phone.
Or whatever, yeah. Bring your notes up.
Just sorry. Can you see my face now? It's my fault. It feels very like. Okay, sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's just because
angle your mic down.
You know what? I'm so sorry. It's my technical difficulties. Is because the way I'm sitting, I'm trying to also not be in like the Lord's light of. I'm a mess. Have you guys noticed?
The Lord's light. Step into the Lord's light, Chris. Go ahead. Sorry.
So we meet Annette Grundy. We're going to meet various producers that came on to work on the show. Annette Grundy talks about the importance of ratings. What had happened was when Jerry Springer gets his daytime to complement the nighttime news show, the show is boring. Unremarkable to say the least, because it's just a boring guy. Jerry's boring. He's just an everyman straight man that has like a disconnect and sort of an elitist quality to him that the audience would like to think that they are also such a person, somewhat disconnected and smart about things. And so to have such a person now talk to mundane people with low energy and slow voices was like, put him to sleep. I mean, they got no ratings. Okay, they were at the bottom of the barrel. They're about to like lose it. The second season comes on is when we get this producer that we have been teased with the glasses. And he had worked in the salacious business of the Sun style newspapers. Like in the 90s and 80s, my grandmother, you said your grandmother loved Judge Judy. My grandmother bought the Inquirer, the Sun, every time the woman, oh yeah, if she was in the grocery store and she was there 3 times a week, she stood in line and she grabbed those papers, honey, and they were always at my grandma's house. And even with them, there's the ones that are about the celebrities that you can maybe like ascertain there's bits and pieces of truth there. Then there's the ones that are like alien babies with a frying pan hand comes down to Idaho and talks to a young girl where you're just like, what? Where you're just like, you are insane. And I loved them both because they also had like the exact same advertisements in them. And the advertisements, of course, is like the fake porcelain baby dolls and, the weird trips and fear. It was all these like fun things you could find in the back of those things. Like I could have a whole conversation about what I would read in the back of like sassy magazines and YM, but don't worry, this is not that. But going back to those magazines, he worked for them. And Richard Dominic is his name. He was renowned for coming up with headlines such as those things. So he brings on Annette, he brings on Toby, and these are people that become the producers of the show. And it's funny because the word producer means like a lot of things. In the confines of an unscripted talk show, a producer doesn't mean like someone who's like getting money for the show or like putting together the stars. The producer is the segment producer for each segment. They are the story producers. They are the writers. It's like the same thing for reality shows. If someone says they are a producer or a story producer, it's like they're saying they're writing the concept of what's going to happen in that segment.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so it's like it's like in Love After Lockup, to give you an example, it's like when Daniel and his cousin have a conversation, the producer has set up that conversation. And the producer has told Daniel's cousin to mention that Bianca has said that he just fucking jams his penis in her and goes to sleep. So anyways.
And the producer's following in his mind or her mind what's going to happen next. They are constructing the story, like it's, Go ahead.
So then that person is named, like Chris said, Rick Dominic, and Richard Dominic comes onto the show in order to get it to be ratings. And he's basically like, listen, if it ain't salacious, it ain't gonna make money. And at this time, the Jerry Springer show is on at 2 a.m. They got moved off of their daytime like slot to 2 a.m. And so he was like, since we're on at 2 a.m., like we could do anything we want. So let's do anything we want. And he told his producers, like, hey, don't bring me anything that isn't going to interest or like cause, some kind of chaos. He's the one who suggested that the audience then chant Jerry, Jerry, Jerry in order to kind of like make Jerry this like celebrity.
But even that isn't just his idea. Arsenio Hall did the same. Like Arsenio Hall's before this, right?
I don't know. But Arsenio Hall was like, I feel like that was him like, okay, so Black people do that. like before Arsenio Hall did it, the hoo, 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 it's part of like when comedians would come out on stage, the
Mm-hmm.
audience, the males would do hoo, 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 as like they're part of their clapping or their cheering or whatever. And so for Arsenio Hall to do that, it was kind of him calling back to the fact that he was a comedian and
Mm-hmm.
that's his audience. So I don't think that it was the same kind of thing, but it is the same kind of thing.
Well, I think Jerry stole that. I mean, I don't think they knew at the time that it was I think that they were like, I'm assuming they saw that that was a fun moment and made everyone on, like, I don't know. That's where I'm assuming they got that from Arsenio.
Yeah, like I have no idea. But they, that actually added another level to the show. And then, they would say, Jerry had a great sense of humor and that he started to kind of loosen up when when they first started doing these salacious shows. And NBC wasn't happy about it, but the show was doing well and ratings are key. So it's like you could either get a little kid getting help from like Disneyland and you can get 1.9 million like views or whatever, or you could do the pimp and the prostitute and get 3.7. Which one would you choose? And so they had chose the 3.7.
Yeah, they're saying 2 million right now is the magic number. And just to give context, the biggest name in the game, Oprah, is getting 12 to 14 million per episode. So that's like kind of what their metrics are.
Mm-hmm. So it ended up getting back to daytime and then it would still come on at night. So then they now had 2 slots and people loved Jerry and it started to grow. So then he hired another producer and her name was Melinda, looks like Claire or Kate. It's spelled very interesting. Mele, or I don't know. Her name was interesting. And she wrote for tabloids as well. And she always said that Richard was like this imposing figure who like sat behind his desk smoking a cigar. And that he was just he owned everything. He was the master of all that he surveyed. And everyone loved Jerry. Like everyone loved him. He was a kind guy. He talked to everybody. Then we have enter of another producer, Toby Yoshimura, who is like a Nepo baby in like Hollywood. And he had been working as a bartender for 4 years and he got hired onto the talk show to man the phone lines for people calling in who had like a crazy story. And so he kind of worked his way up from being the guy who answered the phone calls to like the guy who like produce segments or whatnot. And we ended up finding out that this Toby Yoshimura is the son of a famous either writer or producer of SNL.
Producer, not a writer, but a producer. Yeah.
A producer of SNL. And so he was like, oh, my dad is TV, I do TV. And so then we move on to this TV critic, Robert Felder. So we get to meet the 3 producers, and then we have this other side of the coin character who, felt that Jerry Springer was like the downfall of American, society. And you have to realize, you guys, that this is the time period where TV is king. Radio is all but done. And there are a lot of like censors on
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So isn't that so interesting? Because radio dies, and then somehow later on we'll get this like up chunk of podcasts again. Anyway, that's all I have to say. The one.
Yeah, because radio used to be like there was this like show on NPR that was like they would create sound effects and like it was just anyways. So for entertainment, radio was done, not for listening to music. So everyone is trying to kind of like ride this ride of like how this is blowing up and whatnot, but there's still an idea in America that because most people get their entertainment from this machine in your home that everyone buys, that there is a consciousness that needs to go into the TV shows that they produce. And I think we kind of still have it now, but there are now more avenues for the different type of contents that we consume. And because there's so many avenues, like people can say, you don't have to watch the show. There's so many other things on TV. But during this time, there weren't so many other things on TV. So they put this kind of morality on TV and certain things, especially and not specifically in the talk show space because it's daytime. Kids are watching it. They get home from school. I think Jerry came on at 4 in California. So people were already home from school by then, and kids were watching this. So it becomes that age-old complaint of like, the kids are watching this. You have a moral responsibility to make sure you don't show. But the thing is, though, like the Jerry Springer show is really just showing what people are like. Like people are like this.
It's an extreme version. I think that listen, the human experience has the capacity for the greatest highs, the greatest lows, and the spectrum in between. There's as we're talking about, people who want to fuck horses, and that's disgusting.
Okay.
And there's people that, okay. So, I mean, like, do those people exist? Of course. Do we feel like maybe kids need to know about them? No. But at the same time, whose responsibility is it? The truth of the matter is, it's a fucked up world that's always changing. And I think that your due diligence as a parent, if you want your child to not have exposure to some of the horrors of the world, means you have to make sure they don't have exposure to some of the horrors you think of the world. And the diligence and responsibility lies on you. Now, it's a hard job, and people want to make sure that they don't have to do all of the work themselves. But the truth of the matter is, it's hard to make other people change the way they want to be or act because it affects you. And by affects you, because you choosing to have it affect you. Like, because you have made it and you don't have to. But there we are. Okay, so that's just a whole other conversation at a whole different time. But let me go back to this. So Robert Feeder is there to talk about the fact that the employees were under tremendous strain for Richard's approval. We're setting up the fact that Richard himself is kind of this like assholey, like soprano style character, doesn't yell, but very stern, very scary. In fact, Toby shits his pants even during this documentary every time he has to talk about Richard. I swear to God. He's like, that man was scary. And we're like, okay. And also they want to set up the fact that like almost like that Richard was this puppet master, like circus kind of like Barnum and Bailey, like we want, our mantra is, what are we doing to scare the competition? And it's like the idea of him being like, let's scare the fuck out of Oprah is like wild a little bit to me, but funny. He wants to always be changing, always be shocking. My dad's watching this and I'm like, well, what a horrible man. And my dad's watching this being like, he's a genius. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. So then here's where we get kind of like a little cultural shift in the idea and journey of the Jerry Springer show itself. We've kind of set up that it went from being boring to start to be kind of like explosive with these sexy moments. There is the pushing the envelope moment up, and then it feels like a pivotal point is one of the first KKK member episodes. Now, these episodes of Jerry Springer, I remember like a beacon in the night. Like I had never, I had never been exposed to like overt racism like that, like I'm not saying it didn't exist, but like I just, like where I was growing up, like I was very heavily Catholic in Orange County. I'd never just never saw a person with a, KKK. I've never seen a person in a KKK uniform. I've never heard the N word. I just had never even would believe that people would like those people existed. So this point was a great, like, I just remember being like, oh my God, you feel these things and have the audacity to be on national television because you believe it. Like I remember just being shocked. It was shocking for me.
Oprah had on neo-Nazis, if not the KKK, on her show as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
who did it first?
Oprah. So it's just like, the way they talk about it, I'm like, you guys, this is all what it was. He just kept it longer than he did it after, I guess it was Salacious or whatever. Anyway, so they fought each other and there was like a booing and shit. I mean, obviously, like as a Black person, I know exactly what the Klan looks like. I've seen their uniforms. I know how they feel. I've seen it in movies. Like by this time, I'd probably already seen Rosewood and Ghosts of Mississippi and any other movie of the late 80s, early 90s that had the KKK roaming around killing Black people in the South. So what's interesting is that we find out that the KKK in this instance is going against the JDL. And there's fisticuffs. And we find out, at least I didn't know, that Jerry Springer is like the son of Holocaust survivors. Holocaust survivors? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that. Like, The gentleman from the JDL. I can't remember if he's a rabbi or not. So I'm just if I don't refer to him right, I'm so sorry. But comes on, and then it's immediate violence, and they say it was horrible, it was vile, it was brilliant, just that's what the producers say. It's all yelling and fighting and primal. Whether I would, what the Jewish people thought of Jerry at that time, and like I can't imagine what what people thought in that moment. Jerry comes at it from a very like almost like political stance of anti-censorship. Like I will fight to the death for your chance, for your ability to say whatever you want, even though I don't agree with it. Almost like that kinds of things. The show ends up getting, of course, boycotted. A lot of shows did. It feels like everything got boycotted at some point in the 90s. Like Britney got boycotted. But anyway, not to always talk about her. But anyway, Anyway, so but they get boycotted by priests. And Jerry kind of goes to a hearing where he has to defend himself. This is after the KKK thing, and of course his own personal tie to that moment. He says, it's a television show. It's a television show. We all will survive it. And Jerry is no longer with us. So these are the moments where I guess the documentary gets to have his point of view. Because they kind of teeter back and forth of his own culpability in the culture of it, whether he sat above it kind of judging it, whether he was disconnected, or whether, because he made millions from it, of course it was his own show with his name on it, whether he had responsibility of it.
He also is not necessarily he's being talked about because he's not alive from the viewpoint of the producers. So the show, to me, I mean, this documentary to me is mainly about the producers and their experience producing the show, because we don't have him to kind of talk through what that looks like, besides the sound bites that he had done on different occasions, being on Larry King, being on Conan, being on all those shows. Like he showed up, he was a celebrity in his own right. Like, I don't know that Jenny Jones was on Conan. Like, I don't know that, maybe they were, but I'm saying Jerry Springer was a big celebrity in the way that I think Judge Judy is. And I keep going back to Judge Judy because they are the ones who paved the way for this kind of salacious, and even all the TV judges now, it's a Judge Judy spinoff, So then we start to talk about the people that they had on the show, which again, we talked about it earlier with the Bermuda Triangle. The name of the show was I'm Pregnant by My Brother. And Jerry has to sit there and try to interview while the audience is booing them. And he has to shush the audience and try to be a good news person and really get down to the nitty gritty of this incest that's happening, and show this other perspective of life from it feels like a a teachable moment.
God, that's so crazy. At the Springer Triangle, 75% of guests come from Georgia, Mississippi, and Kentucky. That's where it is.
That area.
And first of all, Angela was on which show was
Maury.
Angela on? Yeah, Maury.
Maury really just leaned on paternity. That's paternity. He leaned into that so hardcore. And Maury is after Jerry.
You're right. You're absolutely, but he just picked one. He picked one lane of these. So there must be it's cheating. It's trans, all the ones that were the most then someone is actually a guy. They do that as well. Incest, bestiality,
just fighting, nakedness, a lot of cheating, a lot of love triangles. So what the show's producers did is they wanted to treat the people on kings or queens. So they would pick them up from their house in a limo, pay for the flights, get them over, pick them up from the airport in Chicago, show them a good time, give them drink tickets. We have one guest who came on to the series, and she has to tell us about her situation and how she was with somebody who was doing speed, and then they all went to bed at 5 a.m. and then got a knock on the door at 6, get the fuck up, we have call time. So they take them, so they're straight off of a night of fucking debauchery. And then they get on and producers are like showing them how to listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, I went on an episode of, I don't know what show it was, but I was an audience member and they wanted me to do a segment. And the segment was like, I don't know what it was, but I brought lingerie. I brought lingerie with me.
Tyra.
And
was it Tyra?
I don't know. Tamar Braxton was the guest. And I just can't remember.
God, I'm having a moment. I feel like I remember this for you. And
I was in New York, and the producer kept trying to feed me things, but because I was already like, I'm already an actor, I'm a professional. Like, what do you mean? I could give you what you want, but you're not going to have me up here like looking stupid. And so if they did that to me and all I was doing was asking whoever it was, like, what do I do with this lingerie that I never wear? Like, then why, you know what I mean? I can only imagine what they did to these small town folks who've never seen a limousine, never been to the big city. I can only imagine the kind of manipulation, tactics that they use. And like the producers didn't want to admit that they manipulated these people, but I know that they did. I know that they did.
Well, I feel like they said that when they say they don't want to admit, I feel like they
tried to say, they said it, but never said like, yeah, we prepped them. We told them what to say. We, you know, they did say it, but I don't know. It felt like they weren't taking like responsibility for the true mastermind. It's a lot of pressure. It's like they make them feel like if you don't do what we say, you're not going to be on the show and we're going to send you home in shame.
Yeah, they literally say that. Like they literally say we won't pay for your flight home, and these people are very broke, you know, and they don't have money. They like, how'd you get someone there? It's like that seems illegal anyway. I'm like, that's illegal. Just side notice, because obviously I care so much about this. But I don't know why I feel like, because also I remember you telling me the Tyra Banks show was filmed in New York in 2007 at Chelsea Studios. It was formerly occupied by Bricky Lake. Does that sound familiar? Did you go to Chelsea Studios?
It wasn't in 2007.
You were in New York.
I wasn't in New York in 2007.
Got it. Okay. Great. So let me moving on. So, by the way, like the stories are showing us the horse thing, the Ku Klux Klan, the pregnant by the brother thing comes back in some horrible way, but we'll get there. So, yeah, producers are, they have like reenactments of what looks like actors hyping up people, like screaming at them, being like, so what are you gonna say when you have a chance to say them, and you got to make this good? And you know, they also even say that Jerry Springer starts to have like baseball style cues when he feels like segments are too boring, you know, like, and every time you see a baseball style cue, like we all think of League of Their Own, right? Where it's just like Gina Davis just like touching in her ears and stuff like that. So then we have this thing where Secret Affairs Exploded, which is a segment that Melanie produces. And then Oprah has and this Secret Affairs Exploded will kind of like come back to haunt us later. And the idea that these producers have to do like 40 to 60 shows a year, and they're just like working, and they're being like told the crazier and you know, the more salacious, the better. And they're just like exhausted, burnout, and like don't care about what's happening just to get it done. They seem like hardened news story people is like what we're kind of being given. Oprah goes on, you know, different news outlets and is asked about Jerry Springer, and she is appalled by him and says so. And this infuriates Jerry and infuriates Richard, I guess. By the way, Richard Dominic. Sometimes I'm like, I wonder if you go by Dick Dom, is like your own personal nickname. Anyway, Dick Dom. Dick Dom gets really, really upset, and they're like, we're gonna take it to her. We're gonna get her, and they have a story like I left my wife and 2 daughters for a pony, as we said, and that story ends up beating Oprah in the ratings. And yes, Jerry himself becomes somewhat of a cultural icon in that he rides this disconnection from the absolute vulgarity of the show with a sort of stoic elitism that it makes the audience feel like what they're watching is okay because they too are disconnected from the mayhem and it's entertainment only and folly.
Yep. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't watch my show if I were you guys. Like but I'm telling stories. I'm telling real life stories and it's a lot. And so they end up doing really well, but then it gets taken down for like bestiality and like all kinds of like, illegal things, at least now. And so like then they decide that they have this vendetta for Oprah, which is so weird. It was like, why was this part of the documentary? Like, it's so
I
weird.
agree. Why? Yes.
Yeah.
Why her?
Why don't they talk about anyone else? Ricky Lake, Jenny Jones, Geraldo. Why don't they talk about all of the other people in the game at the same time? And it was the angle of this documentary was interesting to me. And so, when you watch these documentaries, you gotta try to like suss out what the documentary people want you to get from watching this. And sometimes you can tell they're trying to beat something over the head and like make you feel a certain way. But this one it looks well produced and well done, but it's not if you were actually there and you think about everything else that was going on at the time and how they kind of skip over like maybe some important things that may have been going on. It's weird. So we kind of talk back to this they keep showing us segment of this love triangle segment, and they keep harking back to like, oh, when all went wrong. But the truth is I don't remember this. What I do remember is the Jenny Jones murder. Like, I remember that. I remember that happened. So I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that?
No,
Jenny
I'm
Jones?
so sorry. No.
Okay.
Well, I remember Jenny Jones.
Do you remember this? Do you remember this? The Jerry Springer controversy, the one, the love triangle?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the Jenny Jones one was like, I'm in love with somebody or whatever. And a man sits down and they're like, we have somebody who wants a secret admirer. We have somebody who wants to tell you a secret admirer, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's two gentlemen, right?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes. So like, and that's what took Jenny Jones off the air.
Oh my God.
But this did not take Jerry Springer off the air. So it's just like really, they give us.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it sticks out in my mind. It sticks out in my mind, which is why like some of the segments montages they showed us of like, I used to be a man and like all these like terrible things that, really downplay or really like are traumatic for the trans community. Like it's so heartbreaking. And that's why I think for a while I was like, oh, this has to be fake. And I would hope that it would be fake. Like I wanted Jerry Springer's segment to be fake.
Me too. I thought it was fake, but I mean, and right, two things are illuminated. One, how some things were fake, but the thing is, we get into that. I think in the next part is when they kind of like talk about that. But some things definitely were fake, but they didn't want it to be. Like they were trying to organically have fucked up people show their most fucked upness for their benefit. And so they talk about the standard prison experience or playing with people's psyche. You're really hyping them up. And the last thing I'll say as we kind of like end this episode is two things. A, I want to go back to say you're absolutely right. It feels weird that they bring up Oprah at all. They obviously can't show clips from Oprah's show because they won't be able to get rights from it. And it's funny because you're right, Wall. Like Oprah wasn't above him. No one was above, like trying to get ratings. Oprah did shit as well. But the funny thing is, instead of having a POV that no one was above it, especially not Oprah, because she did shit as well, that was like this. They can't show those clips to kind of like illustrate being a hypocrite because maybe they don't have the rights or whatever. So instead they kind of go just after her words, which is like, well, you're all in the mess. Don't, like it makes no sense it's like that Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing at each other. It's like, you're all fucking fucked up. Yeah, right. The last thing is which I brought up to you off camera, which feels weird, is if you're wondering if we're going to ever talk about Security and Steve, because to me, there were two stars of the Jerry Springer show, especially in the end, Jerry Springer and Steve. Steve is not talked about, and it's not even in the documentary. We never say his name. He's never interviewed. Of course, we know because we watch the show, like Steve gets his own show at one point because the Security was such a major part of the show, and Steve Wilkos show, and not not talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's interesting. All right, you guys. So that's the end for episode 1. There's only 2 episodes in this docuseries, so we'll come out and give you episode 2 in a few days. So we hope that you enjoyed this. Please go ahead and subscribe not subscribe. Join us on Patreon. If you would like to support us and become a patron, you can join us on patreon.com/DocuSweeties. You get a live every first Monday of the month, plus other goodies. So if you're interested in that and you want to support us, please join us on Patreon. Patreon really helps for us to pay our editor and pay our social media person. So if you want to support your girls, do that. If you can't do that, we understand. Chris will tell you the free ways that you can support us. Chris?
Oh, you can just go to our social medias and make sure you like, subscribe, follow, share the whole situation. We are at DocuSweeties on Instagram, at DocuSweeties on TikTok, at DocuSweeties on X. We have a Facebook group, the DocuSweeties Podcast Facebook group. We are also on YouTube. You may go subscribe, like. I just want to say 2 quick things. If you're in the Los Angeles area, our hearts go out to you. It's been very, very difficult as our community fights the fires, and so many things have been lost, and it's devastating. 1. So our hearts go out to you. 2, just as our own little congratulatory to our own Wahima Lino is going absolutely viral on TikTok right now. So I do want you to go and subscribe to DocuSweeties, but just go look at Just Call Me Wah on TikTok, because our girl is a star.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.